So I posted last week, I posted an extra credit assignment. It's available the entire semester. As long as you complete it before the end of week 15, I'll give you credit. Uh, was everyone able to see the extra credit assignment I posted on the announcements last week?
Yes,
Yeah,
I saw your vacation.
Okay. So it's just a little video, a little 10-minute YouTube video. Uh it goes into the history of uh gold, silver, monetary economics. It discusses inflation. These are some of the concepts that we've been uh going over in class, we learned in class. But I posted the video because it's kind of relevant to what's happening now. Have you guys heard about the tariffs that have occurred that President Trump just passed?
the what?
The tariffs that President Trump officially passed yesterday.
What's that for?
So, do you know what a tariff is?
Nope.
Okay, so you need to open up your textbook and read the definition of tariff. So I'll let you catch up on that, but I will kind of go over it again with the students. So tariffs, when you buy things from the store, right? Let's say you buy, yeah, 10% for all America, in some cases more actually. So when you buy something from the
Oh, okay.
store, uh, when you buy something from the store, it was manufactured maybe in another country, maybe it was manufactured in America. It depends, right? But that product that you purchased, a lot of the parts and pieces came from other countries. So those parts and pieces had to be imported into the country. When they're imported into the country, you got to pay sometimes there's a cost for that, right? Shipping costs, and there's what's called a tariff. So a tariff is where the American government will charge a fee for you importing something outside of the country. In most cases, America is or was very low at tariffs. So America is very pro um, open economy, free economy, capitalist economy. This is designed because it's very easy for other countries to do business in America. So in other countries, like if you wanted to sell rice to Japan, the tariffs on rice coming into the country are crazy high. But Japanese rice coming into America is crazy low, or it's not high at all. So America historically, maybe in the last, I saw a chart, can't remember, 40, 50 years, 50 years, low tariffs. So it's easy to import things at a low cost. When you sell goods into another country, those countries apply tariffs. So if you're selling a car in another country, let's say you sell the car for $10,000, that country can apply a 30% tariff. So that car now costs $13,000, 30% more. So the whole issue with President Trump and his policies is that he feels like America's tariffs are unfair, or tariffs against America are unfair because we have historically low tariffs for things coming into our country and products and services going out of our country. For certain countries have high tariffs, but it's not that simple. It's really not that simple. It's very complicated. Let me put my I just realized my camera's off. Hold on. Sorry. So that means that the tariffs that you may, so for example, uh, let's take like coal or steel or something of that sort, or plastic. If it's a raw material, you can't do anything with it till you actually create something with it, right? It has to be created. A microchip is not a microchip until you take uh, semiconductors and silicon and different. minerals and raw materials and plastics to physically construct a microchip or a semiconductor. Those raw materials are produced sometimes in other countries, right? So just because, so I may be able to bring in those products into America, those raw materials very cheaply, but then I could convert that product into a microchip, right? I could turn it into something. Once I turn it into something, it's a different product. So the tariff may not apply to the raw materials of what I use to make something, because that raw materials could be used to make anything, but the tariff may apply to a finished product. So with that said, this blindly throwing tariffs isn't it's not that simple, right? Some things America is bringing into the country because America could be manufacturing or producing finished products. America could be selling raw materials. It's a very the supply chain, and it could be going out to another country to then manufacture parts and pieces, then ship to another country to then manufacture other pieces, then come back here. The supply chain of manufacturing products is very sophisticated, very complicated. So tariffs play a big role in managing the cost structure between other countries for competitive purposes, uh, prevent collusion or dealing with collusive purposes. Also, trade relationships between other countries, and more importantly, protective matters, which I discussed in our live sessions when we had our live classrooms. I used the example of bananas being manufactured. I also used the Japanese rice as an example as well. So uh, those tariffs that our president is passing, President Trump, are across the board against pretty much every country that has a tariff. There's certain exclusions and things and so forth, exemptions, things that are tariffed or not tariffed, whatever. And what's happening now, like what's physically, he released this information at 4 p.m. yesterday. While he's releasing the info, keep in mind the stock market is open till 4:30. So you could 4:30 p.m. Eastern Standard. So you could place trades in the stock market till 4:30. So he's physically delivering a speech on what he's going to do, and you can physically see the stock market dropping the specifically the futures market. Futures deals with like contracts of commodities and raw materials. You physically see the market crashing or dropping while he's delivering this speech. Now the news media, you guys aren't following this. You're doing schoolwork and stuff, so not your job to follow this, but I'm updating you. Uh, the news media is reporting it. So the Federal Reserve, the Federal Reserve. If you don't know who the Federal Reserve is, I'll inform you. Because when I was your age, I probably didn't know either. The Federal Reserve is responsible for economic policies pertaining to they call fiscal policies pertaining to our money supply. So when you go to the bank and you borrow money, or you get an interest rate on a loan or a credit card or a mortgage for a house, borrow money to buy a home, uh, or just put your money in a CD or a savings account, the rate that you pay, the interest rate that you pay, is largely determined by the Federal Reserve and the interest rates they set on a governmental level. So their job is to sort of curtail or reduce or increase the supply of money into our economy. So, for example, if you've got a couple of bucks in your pocket, how did it get there? Right? How did that money get in my pocket? I have no idea. Right? So maybe you have a job and you work at Starbucks and you're a barista and you get a paycheck. So you got your money from Starbucks, right? But how does Starbucks get their money? Right? How does Starbucks get their money? So Starbucks says, well, we sell to other people, and you trace the money supply, and it comes from banks. Okay, the money supply comes from the banking system, the banking cartel. Uh, that's where the money comes from. The banks are the ones lending money, lending funding to businesses to start businesses, to grow businesses, develop. That's where the financing comes from. So it comes from the Federal Reserve Bank, which then gets pushed to the lower levels of the banking system, which then gets spread out to our businesses through our economies. Those businesses pay salaries to the employees, you guys, us. That's how we get bucks in our pocket. So the Federal Reserve sets policies to sort of affect the flow of that money, to reduce the flow or increase the flow. Reducing the flow of money or reducing the amount of money that goes into the economy helps fight inflation. Inflation is the rise, or I should say, the decrease of value of your money. That means your dollar has less purchasing power today than it did yesterday, right? So, for example, if you look at the history of a price of milk, or go to McDonald's and look at how much a Big Mac is today. 10 years ago, a Big Mac was way cheaper. You guys are still alive to see that. So things got more expensive. That's inflation. Things get more expensive. Inflation is not going to go back. It's just going to keep getting more and more expensive. Inflation is built into the nature of our economy. That means that when you're in your 30s and 40s and 50s and 60s, that Big Mac's going to be $20, $30, $40. It's going to be, you're literally going to go to a McDonald's and paying like 24 bucks for a Big Mac. Literally. So will your salaries match? Yeah, exactly. Will your salaries match the price of the Big Mac? And that's where the problems occur. That sometimes the increase in inflation doesn't match the increase in our salaries. And that leads to a recession, right? And that's where we are currently heading today. All right. That's why at the beginning of class, I showed you guys the price of gold, because gold is sort of a tell to inflation, right? It's a tell to a lot of things. It's a commodity you could follow to figure out what's going on in the economy. Uh, it tells you things, right? It tells you about inflation, tells you things. So Donald Trump passed tariffs against all the other, not every country, but a lot of the countries that we do business with. So now, when those items from other countries are imported into America, so you are a company, you make something, you import something from Thailand, you import something from China, you import something from wherever, you have to pay more now. You have to pay more money. So if you pay more money, it's going to cost you more to make that item, which means you have to sell it for more to make up for the cost, the increase in the tariffs. So then you, the consumer, the end consumer, you will be paying more money for those items, which is inflationary. So increase in tariffs create inflationary results in our economy. So stuff is going to cost more expensive for you to buy. That is a separate component. That's an economic component that our president is impacting. But that's a completely different component from the Federal Reserve I was discussing. The Federal Reserve separately impacts the cost to borrow new printed money. Okay, separate issue. Tariffs is one issue. That's going to cause inflation in your prices. Federal Reserve, something different. This is how our money supply works. So when you go to the bank and you take out a loan for a house, the price of that mortgage, the interest you pay, is based upon the interest rates that the Federal Reserve sets on any new money that gets put out into the economy. So if they want to reduce inflation, I mean bring inflation down, they want to reduce the money supply. So that means that if there's less money floating around in the economy, it becomes more scarce or more rare. Because it becomes more rare, essentially, the value of it increases. So it reduces inflation, where inflation is actually reducing the value of money. So by decreasing the supply, they're actually increasing the value of money. And I don't expect you to understand that, but I'm just explaining what it is. Okay. So the logic is when the Federal Reserve decreases, well, when the Federal Reserve increases interest rates, that means makes it more expensive to borrow money, your money becomes worth more. When the Federal Reserve decreases interest rates, that means money's cheaper. You could borrow money for less. It's less interest. So more money is borrowed because it's cheaper. So more money gets put into the supply and you have access to more money. So because you have access to more money, people make more money. They have more money to spend, more bonuses, more raises, more whatever. And when you have more money, you spend more money. That's just the truth of it. And because you spend more money, people become less sensitive. This is the economics of it. People become less sensitive to prices when they have more money. So if you got $10 in your pocket and that's all you got, you're gonna pinch those pennies. But if you got $1,000 in your pocket, you're not worried so much because you got extra money. So if something's a couple of bucks more or a couple of cents more, you don't care because you got money to spend. That behavior, that consumer behavior, businesses are always trying to maximize price. So they figure that out and they increase the prices to try to maximize what you can spend. And you get inflation. It's complicated. Many different things are affecting inflation. Many different things are affecting uh, the cost of things. You might be like, I'm not richer, professor. I don't have more money, and everything keeps getting more expensive. And in some cases, yeah, that's true. Literally, you're working paycheck to paycheck. You could afford to buy eggs. Now you can't afford to buy eggs. You're like, I didn't get more money to spend more stuff. That didn't, there's no inflation where I was spending more. And you're maybe not part of the problem that's causing the inflation. Other issues are causing the problem. Businesses, other things happening that's creating inflation. So, uh, not to get too technical, but I will tell you this: if you have a mind to understand and listen to what I'm saying, asset prices. What's an asset? An asset is something you own, right? So you own a car, you own a house, you own gold or silver, you own stocks or bonds or investments or businesses. Those are all assets, right? Things you own. Collectibles, uh, antiques, jewelry, those are assets. Typically, assets like your house, your car, your cash, your investments, stuff like that. If you tried to buy a house in the 80s, 1980, in New York City, the same house that's like $1 million today, to buy that house was like 50,000 back then, 75,000. Maybe it was a nice house, it was 100,000. All right, that's like 60 years, that's 40 years ago. You could buy houses in New York for for like 50 to 75,000. All right. Now you have $1 million houses, same stupid house, $1 million. Inflation. That's inflation, right? But inflation as it pertains to assets, it's a little different. It's completely different, but it's tied to everything. So buying, and you look, millennials complain about it, Gen Z complains about it. How am I supposed to buy a house? It's too expensive. I'm not making enough money, right? My parents could afford to buy a home on their salaries. I can't. Why is that? Real talk is because your salaries have not increased or matched to the inflation of assets. They're correlated, but they're separate. All right. So the prices of houses and also the price of education has increased exponentially more than your salaries have year over year over the last 40, 50 years. Okay. So if you save some bucks and invested those bucks in some sort of investment, you would have saw your investments grow in correlation or grow the same as assets. But if you are living paycheck to paycheck and you don't save money and you're not investing that money, you won't see your money grow. Your salaries and your raises will never keep up with the price of assets. So the reality of buying a home is going to get further and further and further away from you because your salaries are not going to match it unless you're like a very high income earner, middle class high income earner, entrepreneur, successful business owner, something of that sort. Working class salaries are not going to match the rate of asset inflation. Okay. Cost of buying eggs and stuff, sure, you'll be able to do that, but owning things, no. It's just the way things are. The reason why, now here's the reason why. The reason why that is because asset prices correlate. Correlate means comparatively. There's a relationship comparatively between two things. Okay. So for example, is a stupid example. All right. You can correlate the rate of alcoholism with how much alcohol you drink, right? The more alcohol you probably drink, the more likely you're probably an alcoholic, right? Bad, stupid example, but it gives its correlation. So when I say correlate, I mean there's a connection between the two that's positive. If something increases, that also increases if it's correlated. If something decreases, that also decreases if it's correlated. All right, so they follow each other. That's the easy way to say it. They follow each other. That's what correlation means. So the prices of assets, cars, homes, investments, stocks, bonds, things of that sort, actually correlate to the amount of debt the US government has in treasury bonds and treasury bills. So that what does that mean? It means the amount of money that's being printed and the amount of debt the American government has to the printing of our money correlates with the rise in asset prices. So the simple way to put it is the more debt the American government has with our Federal Reserve, that correlation of debt correlates with asset prices. Doesn't correlate with your salaries, doesn't correlate with GDP. It's the money supply. So as those economic activities that affect money supply increase, because what I maybe failed to tell you is every time you got a dollar in your pocket and the Federal Reserve printed that dollar for you to use, it's debt that the American government owes. No dollar is given without it being paid back. So when the Federal Reserve Bank prints a dollar to go and flow into our economy, the US government has to pay back that dollar. That's how it works. No free money. You just don't print money and just put it out there. It is perpetual debt that has to be repaid by our American government to the banking cartel, the Federal Reserve. That's how the money supply works. Who pays it back? You do. Your tax dollars do. That's how it works. So you get bucks, you use those bucks to pay taxes. American government use those tax revenues to pay back the banks that are lending you the money that you use for your economy at interest, which then continues to rise, and that helps promote or support inflation because how do you make money to pay back the interest? You just borrow the money from to use. You got to borrow more money. And it creates a cycle. And that's actually the way our economy works. You are borrowing new money to pay back old money. And then you got to borrow more new money to pay back the old interest on the new money, on the old money you borrow. And you keep redoing it over and over and over and over and over. That's the reason why there's inflation. That's like the main driver for inflation is that. That's why that's why everything's more expensive. The decades and decades and decades of economic growth we've had, it's inflationary because of how the Federal Reserve fiat system works. Fiat means the economy. The money that we use is not tied to anything of actual value, store value. So the video that I posted for you guys, discusses silver and gold. It discusses the history of the things I'm discussing about pertain to value and inflation because everyone in this virtual classroom, you are heading into record monster inflation. Okay. Your salaries will not keep up with, neither will my salary, will not keep up with the cost of what's coming in the next couple of years. Going to have another wave of inflation that's going to hit the economy. All right. Inflation comes in waves. Historically, it comes in waves. In the United States, it comes in waves. So the tariffs that Donald Trump has just passed, our president, is guaranteeing another wave of inflation, which means you're going to see an increase in prices of the things you buy, but not the increase in your salaries to match it, which puts us in fear of a recession. A recession is an economic downturn. That means the economy is stinky, it's bad. Bad economy, bad jobs, bad salaries, bad everything. That's what a recession is. So we're heading in that direction.
I
It's
have a question.
Go ahead.
So why we have 40 jobs then? Like
What do you mean 40 jobs?
not poorly, like poorly jobs, like say they don't pay that much. Like
Because
why?
because just to add a simple question, the salaries you get paid have nothing to do with the prices of everything going on. They're not
Oh,
correlated. So like when you go to buy a home or a car or eggs, the salaries you get, the rate at which they pay you, why they pay that has
yeah,
nothing to do with why everything else is more expensive. They're not 100% correlated.
yeah.
So you're like, oh, I
I
need
would,
more money to buy this stuff, and that's too bad. That's your problem.
no, yeah.
Right? That's your problem because
Yeah,
that's not what I got to make up. My business has to make a profit. So this is what I can
yeah.
afford to pay you. And then all the cost of eggs and food and whatever other issues, other economic problems that are related to that affect the price because they need to make a profit too. It's very
But
complicated.
what if like they're trying to hire people? It's like it doesn't make sense. Like why hire people if you're not gonna pay that much for the jo like
God, it's
for the
got
salary and
it's
then
got nothing to do with you. It's about them. It's not
like
about you trying to feel comfy about your life. And it's like, look, if you don't work, then what do? You starve.
yeah,
Go work Saturdays. Go work Sundays. Go work when you get out 9 to 5, go work 6 to 10. That's what's gonna happen, guys.
yeah,
You go to other countries and the lifestyle of people is just gonna get more and more third world. It's gonna get more, you're gonna be working 50 hours, 55, 60-hour work weeks just to maintain the same lifestyle you could have maintained 30, 40 years ago because that's what's going to happen. That's literally what's going to happen. Okay. So the reason why I posted that video, the extra credit assignment, is because it's teaching you a lesson about what's happening, what has happened in the past, what is happening now. That's why I posted the video. So it's historical. Yeah, the guy is kind of telling you, oh, buy gold, buy silver, because that's just what he's doing. Maybe he's right. Right? Maybe you should invest in that. You probably should over your lifetime. But it's educational. So that's why I posted that. So I spent most of our lecture talking about what's going on in the current economy. Uh, this is chapter 11 is just predominantly human resource management, which we went over this a little bit last time. I'm not going to really touch base too much on uh, this subject matter because we spent more time discussing the current economics of what's going on, which is fine. That's great, right? So uh, I'll leave it to your own devices to kind of review this material and read it, memorize the definitions. And I will continue to. Do you guys have any questions though, based on what I just said? Any questions on what I just discussed?
no, that was not my question.
Okay. So I will continue on the just the two things. We have class next week, Thursday. The week after is spring break. So I'll see you one more week, then we do spring break. Okay, so just letting you get.
Wait, I have a question.
Yeah.
Um, so basically, before the spring break is do the assignment that you said about the find a job and create,
Okay, so the career assignment
yeah,
is
career
due week
assignment, right?
12. It's due in week 12. If you physically go to the content, I put all the dates there for you. Just follow the dates.
Yes.
So I factor into the dates, I factor in the spring break. So just follow, look, go to weekly content, look at the dates.
Weekly.
You'll be able
Okay.
to stay track on that.
All right. But it's on week 7, right? You're saying the
Yes,
everything like
the
when it
assignment
began.
was posted in week 7. That's correct.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
All right. All right, guys. So
All right.
there's a lot of history going on right now. I'm not trying to make you guys feel guilty or bad about what's going on. It's not your fault. It's in the economy. But just, the business you're learning, the stuff you're learning helps you understand what's happening and what you could do. The video I posted, if you don't want to do the assignment, guys, just watch the video I posted at least. All right. All right. Take care, everybody.
All right. Take care too.
If you have
Bye.
any questions, email me. We could do a private meeting if need be. Take care.
Okay.
All right.